Hello everyone, it's NerdGasm. Welcome back to my retrospective series of the mainline Resident Evil games. Today's video is on Resident Evil 2, the 2019 remake of the original. Like I had mentioned in my last video, playing Resident Evil 2 was my foray into this franchise, and more specifically, those classic games that had been released on Sony's PS1 that I had turned a blind eye to in my youth, and never gave a fighting chance for a variety of reasons. Check out my last video if you would like more elaboration on that. But after playing it, I found myself enamored with the world of Resident Evil and its characters, the spooky atmosphere, the interesting plot elements, the intimidating antagonists, the intense and engaging inventory management, and other problem-solving found within its gameplay. I just couldn't get enough of it. Beating Resident Evil 2 was an experience, one that I would never forget, and it would quickly become one of my all-time favorite video games ever that I found myself revisiting numerous times. Having played through the remake of Resident Evil first, before playing Resident Evil 2 again to make this video, I have an even greater appreciation for RE2's gameplay than I did when I first played it back in 2019. The over-the-shoulder gun combat and third-person perspective is so much more satisfying and faster-paced than the tank controls in the original, in my opinion. Being able to freely aim at targets in order to land a headshot or at their limbs to remove them and slow them down is so much more enjoyable. Some people have their complaints about this new style, that it's more action-heavy and not so much survival horror, but that's the thing. I don't believe survival horror is restricted to a certain type of gameplay or particular camera angle. It's all about the tone, the atmosphere, how the game makes you feel while playing it, and much like Resident Evil 1, RE2 makes me feel nervous, tense, like my back is up against a wall, that I am always at a disadvantage against my enemies, and never have a firm grasp on my surroundings. I never feel safe, even with all the freedom you have at your disposal in RE2 compared to the first game in terms of camera movement and aiming control. You can still get flanked, overwhelmed by the seemingly endless hordes of zombies you go up against, and death can be lurking around every corner if you aren't careful. Exploring the Raccoon City police station, the primary location in this game, is just as frightening as the Spencer Mansion, though I find the mansion in Resident Evil 1 to be the most atmospheric and unsettling than any of the other main locations in the series. The police station is my personal favorite. It has a very unique personality to it, lots of gothic architecture, darkened hallways, and massive open rooms, like the library and main hall, which give it a very calm yet disturbing feel. It combines the new with the old, having been an art museum before it was converted into a police precinct, so it has a lot of rich history behind it. An aspect of Resident Evil 2's exploration that makes it far more rewarding than the first games, in my opinion, is the fact that every time you enter a room, interact with an object, or are presented with a locked door, and are told which key is needed to open it, the game will document it, marking it on the map with a unique icon so you can come back to it later. Now, I know many would argue not knowing what is in each room or what key you need to open which door adds to the whole survival horror aspect of everything, being put in this kind of life-or-death situation, your character not being familiar with their surroundings. It makes sense that they wouldn't remember where they have been or what they have seen, and it definitely makes navigation and inventory management far more challenging. Resident Evil 1's map does update, and this was something I failed to mention in my previous video, but only changes color from red to green, indicating whether or not you have picked up all the items in a room, but not marking down what exactly those items are. In Resident Evil 2, the map marks down everything. Yes, it does make it a little easier in terms of item management, sure, but it also means you have to do a lot less backtracking than you did in the original. You're able to progress through the story in a faster and more natural way. If you find the combination to a safe, you can quickly locate it. If you find a mission-specific item, like a fuse or a crank, you can remember where to use it. Everything just flows a lot better in this one and adds a whole other layer of strategy to your thought process in regards to exploration and puzzle solving. You can plan various routes, chain them together, know and/or remember what rewards are waiting for you along the way. And I know not every Resident Evil game tracks the items on the map like the remake of RE2 and RE3 would later do. It's not just Resident Evil 1 that didn't have this feature, but I find it to be such an important aspect of Resident Evil 1 to 3, more so than most of the other games in the series, because they lean far more heavily on the exploration and puzzle solving side of things, as opposed to the action and spectacle like some of the other games leading up to the newer first-person ones did, that had most of their pickups be weapons and ammo, and very rarely keys and other useful puzzle items. The locations found in Resident Evil 1 to 3 felt like you had been dropped inside of a giant puzzle box and had to use your cunning and wit to find your way out of them. The fact that RE2 and RE3 track everything you interact with on their maps just makes them so much more enjoyable with all this. Anyways, let's get into the story of Resident Evil 2. You have the option to play as two different characters just like in the first Resident Evil, but unlike Resident Evil 1, the character you choose will have a much greater impact on the game's story. There is some overlap between the two campaigns, but for the most part, they have you traveling to different locations, interacting with unique side characters, receiving different weapons, and facing off with different bosses. Both characters also have two different scenarios you can play through, A and B, which change the weapons you get, alter the solutions to the puzzles and the locations of items, as well as your starting point at the beginning. So, compared to RE1, RE2 offers a lot more meat on its bones with its story. It's much longer and more intricate. When playing this game again for this review, I chose to just play through Claire's A story and then Leon's B story, which is considered the canon scenario of Resident Evil 2, so that's the only one I'm going to summarize here. Resident Evil 2 takes place shortly after the events of the first game, 2 months to be exact. The T-Virus bioweapon developed by the Umbrella Corporation that had caused an outbreak in the Arklay Mountains and woods outside Raccoon City has now spread into the city within its water supply. The town has become completely overrun with zombies. The female lead of this game is college student Claire Redfield, the younger sister of Chris from the first game, who has come to Raccoon City in search of her missing brother. You later find out that Chris had left Raccoon City when the police department's STARS unit was disbanded following the mansion incident. He would go after Umbrella himself in an effort to uncover all of their dirty little secrets. After learning of the zombie infestation in the city, refueling her motorcycle at a gas station in its outskirts, Claire meets up with the other playable character in this game, Leon Kennedy, a rookie police officer who is just about to start his first day at the Raccoon City Police Department. Poor bastard, if only he knew what he was getting himself into. The two arrive at the city's police station and are separated from one another following the crash of a semi-truck. Regardless of who you are playing as, Claire or Leon, you enter the station, find the place in shambles, with civilians and police officers transformed into cannibalistic monsters, and encounter the sole surviving officer, Marvin Branagh, mortally wounded. who tells you there is a secret passage out of the station through its basement, which you will need to slowly open by finding the 3 medallions hidden in statues throughout the building. While making your way through the underground passage as Claire, you encounter a young girl named Sherry Birkin hiding from the zombies. She's the daughter of William and Annette Birkin, a pair of scientists working for Umbrella. William had been developing a new virus, the Golgotha or G virus, and when it was discovered that he planned on selling the bioweapon to the US government behind Umbrella's back, they sent soldiers in to kill him and steal his samples. Mortally wounded, William's only hope for survival and to get revenge against his attackers was to inject himself with the G virus, which transformed him into a hulking monster. During the resulting battle with the soldiers, a vial of T-virus leaked into the city's water system, infecting all of Raccoon. William Birkin, the monster known simply as G, is the primary antagonist of Resident Evil 2. Most of the game's boss battles are against him, and as the story progresses, he mutates further, losing more and more of his human appearance each time. All the designs of the various G monsters are so creative and distinct from one another. I think my favorite is the Machamp-looking one, with the 4 arms, his 3rd stage. Very freaky. Something you get a strong understanding of in Resident Evil 2, and honestly another aspect that makes it scary in my opinion, are the lengths Umbrella is conspiring to cover up the T-virus outbreak, their involvement in it, as well as the experiments they are performing with the new G-virus in their underground facility known as Nest, which you find and explore closer to the end of the game. In Claire's story, you encounter the sleazy and corrupt chief of police named Brian Irons, and man, is this guy a piece of shit. He had been bribed by Umbrella to shut down STARS after their officers began investigating the company following what transpired at the Spencer estate. He also imprisons a reporter named Ben Bertolucci, a character you meet during Leon's campaign in the police station's holding cells that had found evidence linking Irons to Umbrella. After the T-virus outbreak bled over into Raccoon City, Chief Irons was driven mad, becoming a serial killer. He targets Sherry because a sample of the G-virus was hidden inside of her pendant by her mother. Irons would capture Sherry and hold her hostage at a nearby orphanage he also runs. It's revealed that this orphanage supplies human test subjects to Umbrella. How lovely. Thankfully, this tubby prick gets his comeuppance, having his face disfigured by acid thrown at him by Sherry, and then killed when a G embryo bursts out of his chest. Karma is a bitch, yo. The other way Umbrella is attempting to cover up the Raccoon City incident is with the cute and cuddly Mr. X. It's a Tyrant Model T-103. This bioorganic weapon was created by Umbrella using clones of the T-002 model, the one you encountered in the first game. This new line of tyrants were mass-produced, made more humanoid in appearance than their crude predecessors, and possessed a higher level of intelligence, closer to that of an actual human. Mr. X is one of 6 of these T-103 models that were deployed by Umbrella in Raccoon City. Its purpose was to eliminate all of the survivors within the city's police station and to retrieve the G-virus sample inside Sherry Birkin's pendant. Capcom, the developers of the Resident Evil games, have stated that you only encounter one of the T-103s in RE2, but I'd like to believe you face off with at least 2 of them, because Mr. X is eliminated out of the equation pretty early on in Claire's story, having its torso ripped apart by an attacking William Birkin in his first G form. Tyrants possess regenerative abilities, but I highly doubt that one survived those wounds, unless it was gifted at sewing as well and could repair the trench coat it was wearing. The only way it makes sense to me is if one tyrant was sent after Claire to get the G-virus sample from Sherry, and another was sent after Leon and everyone else at the police station who knew too much about the T-virus and Umbrella, and the one at the police station overlaps into both characters' stories because Claire and Leon are at the station at different times. Regardless of how you look at it though, Mr. X is one of the best parts of Resident Evil 2. The tyrant's role is limited in Claire's campaign, but in Leon's, it takes center stage, acting as the main antagonist really. Mr. X is an unstoppable Terminator that can't be killed or reasoned with. You can weaken it, dropping it to one knee for short durations, but wasting bullets on it is a bad idea, pretty pointless if you ask me. The best advice I can give is to just run the other way when you see it. In Leon's B story, Mr. X is with you every step of the way basically. You never get a chance to sit still and breathe. Its purpose, gameplay-wise, is brilliant. Once you hear that foreboding music kick in, the intimidating stomping of its feet, it causes you to make split decisions, make mistakes, go down the wrong path or into a group of previously undisturbed enemies. The worst is when Mr. X sends you into some liquors, these skinless, clawed, and long-tongued zombies that sense loud noises. When you have a Mr. X on your tail, and a few of these creepy bastards coming after you too, you're basically lunch meat at that point. Soup's on. I love the cinematic aspect given to the tyrant character in this game too. It's a powerhouse. No matter how much punishment is dealt to it, it keeps coming back for more, keeps building up the suspense. It gets hit by a SWAT van, being embedded into a concrete wall. The van also explodes. It gets set on fire, and by the end, mutates into a super tyrant when its power limiter device is damaged and deactivated. This form closely resembles the tyrant you fought in the first game, with the clawed arm and exposed heart on the outside of its chest. You blow this one up in the exact same way too, with a motherfucking rocket launcher. Comparing the two characters and their stories, I prefer to play Leon's over Claire's. Not only do I enjoy the greater emphasis put on Mr. X in his game, but as a protagonist, I find Leon to be extremely likable. He's the rookie cop facing the worst first day anyone could possibly imagine. I like that he cracks a few jokes to ease the depressing situation at times, and that he has an incessant need to do the right thing, save lives, and put an end to Umbrella by any means necessary, even if he dies trying. I also find all the stuff surrounding his supporting character Ada Wong to be a lot more interesting than Sherry in Claire's story. She's a spy working for a rival company of Umbrella who was hired to retrieve the G-virus sample. Her hidden agenda is exposed, and she is seemingly killed in a fall within the Nest facility. Even though I prefer playing as Leon, Claire is still a strong character in her own right. She's not as badass as Jill Valentine was in the original, mind you, but badass nonetheless. She has a very protective and motherly quality to her, going out of her way to rescue Sherry, and almost feels like her big sister by the end. Claire has to play the role of a parent to her, because Sherry's mother and father are a couple of deadbeats. They both played a role in Umbrella's bioweapon research. If their hope was to make the world a safer place for their daughter, then they failed miserably. You do end up feeling a bit of sympathy for her mother Annette though. She helps Claire find a cure to save Sherry in the Nest lab after she had been infected with the G-virus, and also reveals the true intentions of Ada to Leon in his story, so the game makes an attempt to redeem her as best it can. From an objective stance, I think Resident Evil 2, the remake of it at least, is the best game in the entire Resident Evil franchise. I don't think any other game balances the action-oriented gameplay of new with the tense, atmospheric, survival horror elements of old, as grotesquely beautiful as this game does. I think it's the perfect combination of these two eras of Resident Evil that come together to make the most unforgettable gaming experience of this series in my opinion. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it down in the comment section below. Where do you rank the remake of Resident Evil 2? Do you think it's the best game in the franchise? Or maybe a little overrated? I want to thank you all for watching this video, the second installment in my Resident Evil retrospective series. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be notified when the next one of these drop. If you'd like to help support the channel and ensure the production of more videos like these, you can do so by becoming a producer over on patreon.com/channel NerdGasm. Any and all support over there, big or small, goes a long way in keeping this YouTube channel alive, so thank you. I will see you all in the next one with my review of Resident Evil 3. Until then, take care, stay safe, and always stay nerdy.